Welcome to House Rule, a podcast about role-playing. We are on episode number 17!
Heyo!
This is your host, Ed.
I'm Ebo.
This is Jeff.
I'm Lee.
I'm doing these dramatic gestures as though I'm pointing to you, even though I can't see.
We can tell.
Oh,
The noises you're making with your mouth indicate dramatic gesturing.
I knew that you were pointing to me.
If we ever do a V-cast, you'll be able to see Ed's dramatic gestures.
A V-cast? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I made it up, man. We're breaking new ground here.
Dude, I like when you make abbreviations like that, like V-cast.
I'm hoping you mean virtual and not video.
Wait. If they call it a vlog, shouldn't we call it a V-cast?
Vodcast?
No,
Vodcast.
a V-cast.
Vidcast,
Don't say
maybe?
vodcast. That's not a thing.
None of these things are things. We're trying to coin phrases for things that don't have really stupid phrases for them yet.
Internet.
well,
Just have to use
V-cast
buzzwords,
is
and you
it.
succeed.
Alright, speaking of
cast.
buzzwords, I don't have a good segue, so I'm going to start talking about the first subject, which
Kingmaker.
is...
Kingmaker's a buzzword.
Kingmaker's a buzzword.
It's got two. Look at Kingmaker is made up of two important sounding words: king and maker. Those are like a king is an important dude, right? And maker is like, God. So we're like gods.
Or like bread maker.
Bread maker.
Or like bread maker. It's either God or bread maker. Dude.
One of the two.
Bread sounds delicious.
You, our listeners, may decide which is more important.
So Kingmaker's pretty fun.
So yeah, we've been playing this for how many sessions? Like 3?
Mm-mm.
3.
2? 3? 3.
Yep.
3 sounds right. I said because I wasn't sure, and I was just trying to fill the space until you guys let me answer.
No, you're right. We did 3.
And we're apparently still going strong with it, so...
Yeah, I am super into it. This is my first time ever running a pre-written, a published adventure, much less an adventure path, which in theory will take us from level 1 to whatever we desire, I guess.
It'll probably take us to a high enough level to kill one of the gods in the game world.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure the published material goes to like level 17 or 18, but there's also stuff in the last adventure plus stuff that I've cooked up myself, which will take us. If you guys want to keep going after that, we will have material.
Goody.
Wow.
I really like my character, and I assume that since we nixed Resurrection out of the gates, that he will be replaced at some point.
Oh,
and I'll like that character just as much.
A big thing, like a really annoying thing that's been plaguing my dreams for a while now is they have a spell in the Pathfinder core rulebook that lets you resurrect people from the dead after they've only been dead for one turn. In 3rd edition, they had a spell like that called Revivify, and I could not remember what the spell in the Pathfinder book was called, to the point where I had literally thought that I was just remembering it incorrectly. And then finally today I figured it out. It's called Breath of Life. It's essentially...
like the magic card.
It's essentially like, you have cure light wounds through cure critical wounds, and it's the 5th level version where it's 5d8 plus your level up to 25, except that it also brings you back from the dead if you're dead.
So we don't get it for a long time, and Rory will probably never have it because, let's be honest, he's not super useful.
Well, I will encourage him to take it if he's wondering if he should take a 5th level spell that anybody suggests. Mainly because
he's gonna just take heal.
I like the safety net that heal is 6th level, bro.
Oh, it is.
I like the safety net that having a limited amount of resurrection gives you, because it's like, it's like, what if that like, I don't know, elder green dragon just bites your head right off in one turn. I, as the DM, might not even see that coming, and I like the idea that you guys can do a little something about that, even if it's not foolproof.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I mean,
I could just allow reincarnation only, and if people come back as bears, they come back as level 15 bear fighters.
Honestly, I guess we could probably do a whole topic about resurrection, but I think the problem we ran into was the whole battle's over, gotta go get resurrected, and it
sort of trivializes death. I like it when death has more impact.
But one thing that is very much on topic about Kingmaker that this sort of brings up is that so far I have not felt that Kingmaker is very difficult.
I agree with you there. I think part of it is I
haven't feared dying yet in this game.
I've been leery about adjusting encounters too heavily. Mainly, like I will basically add another one or two of the lowest level enemies, which in this case it's usual. Most of the encounters you've done have been a group of level 1 warrior bandits, and then a couple of NPCs who have class levels.
Yeah.
And
my god, dude, that freaking Stag Lord, man, he was fucking stacked.
Yeah, I mean, and also another aspect of it is that so far you have been able to exploit good strategy in order to rout your enemies soundly.
That is true.
The Stag Lord thing, going straight for him seemed like a really good in-game decision, but out of game I'm like, oh, this is dumb. We should play more game before we do this. And I felt like we were still able to succeed even though we kind of went straight for the gold, so to speak, which was cool. But
I don't want to tip my hand and reveal too much. But what I'm going to say now is that you will have a decent amount of game of the first adventure in the path left, even though you have completed what is essentially the end of it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. How early did we do that?
You guys, I made a point of having you guys be level 2 before you went through there, because because the adventure suggests that you be level 3 before you go to that place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And part of it was there you had a little bit of
That's
NPC
what I thought.
a little bit of NPC support. You had one character who you had enlisted to help you. You had a really winning strategy, and also there were certain complications that happen in the encounter, or that happened in the encounter because of what you were doing, that allowed you guys to remain relatively safe from immediate and utter murder, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that fight was hardcore. Basically, if people are wondering and they haven't watched our archives, which you can do, they're on the website. We're playing Kingmaker, and we have been really gung-ho about removing the bandit threat. So instead of exploring all the hexes we come across, like we're probably supposed to do, we just bum-rushed the main target goal of the module with more or less pretty great success. We were actually in pretty dire straits at the end of that fight, like almost entirely. I think we were entirely out of healing magic, and several of us were grievously injured. But yeah, no, I mean it turned out all right.
Yeah, I guess I also have been a little bit hesitant to really go for you because I have decided that I don't want to have Resurrection be a part of the game. And I don't want this might be backwards logic, but I think that I don't want really low level characters to just get killed. Partly because these characters have a lot of investment in the story. I've tried to make sure that that's true, except for Ebo's character, who I have some ideas for his character's investment in the story, but I really haven't mentioned them to him. So
I got some ideas. We can talk about them.
Okay. But anyway, the point is, I'm just saying, like, I want for these characters, if they die, for their death to be... It will still be disappointing to you if your character is killed, but I don't want it to be meaningless or just frustrating to you.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And so
when players die, it should be cool, or
I
at the very least meaningful.
I was ready to laugh off dying really hard to.
I haven't really been fudging anything so far. I've just been kind of, like I said, I've been adjusting the encounter difficulty with a little bit more leniency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And also the adventure has some built-in possibility for random encounters, which can potentially be very threatening. And I haven't really been rolling those, mainly because you haven't been spending long enough time exploring for them to really come at you.
We explored one hex, I think.
I mean,
one?
it's a pretty minuscule chance, like, every time you enter a new hex, but then there's a substantial chance of those sorts of things happening if you're spending a lot of time bumming around one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things like you would have come across a lot more danger by this point if you had spent a lot more sessions just exploring.
Yeah. See, I actually find myself like thinking like my character, like my character is really excited to stop murdering people. So I just want to start like exploring and getting out there and finding out what's in the wilderness because he wants to just stop killing bandits. Because it makes him feel kind of bad.
Yeah, I think one of the things is, though, we only have a limited amount of time to play, and it's on a Monday night, so we've probably been skipping more or less.
I am.
See, I haven't even really been thinking about that too much.
I know, but it might be a subconscious thing.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I guess I felt kind of bad after the last session because it went so late. And I do blame my internet connection a little bit for that because that was kind of a... We would have been done like an hour and a half or more early.
I blame your internet connection almost exclusively for that.
I would have blamed
Not
like,
all,
Rory.
not entirely for it. I blame Ebo for it partially.
On the
There's
one
nothing
hand,
to do about.
I also thank the internet
What?
for coming back at the time it did because it came back like, I don't know, like a minute and a half before I was ready to call it, just say we're done. And
We were
I would have been
just
in a
ready
really,
to give up.
I would have been in a really foul mood all week if that had fallen through at that point. You guys were literally creeping out of the trapdoor in the back of the enemy camp, and then the internet cut out, and I was just like,
Dude, I never rage harder than when my shit breaks. Like, when the internet doesn't work, like, Jenny knows that, Jenny being my girlfriend, that when our router stopped working in our old place, that she would just be like, I'm not gonna bother with it. I'm not even gonna talk to him. I'm just like, I get pissed when when my stuff doesn't work. I hate that.
Anyway, I mean, technical problems aside, that session I was really pretty pleased with.
Oh yeah, dude, it turned out awesome. Like, in the end.
That was fun.
And we had plenty of time to be irreverent jackasses while your internet was down. And if you ever want to catch up on that, I'll be posting it on the website. For you, Ed.
And I managed to spend a decent amount of the out-of-town Thanksgiving holiday on reading the latter adventures in the adventure path to kind of prime myself for what's to come. So
You can sneak in a little bit of that foreshadowing.
I'm pretty jazzed about the whole thing.
Honestly, I remember someone on Reddit was saying that, or maybe it was on RPG.net, that they were talking about how a lot of the Paizo modules and adventure paths and stuff are really hard, and they were like, "Is Kingmaker the same way? Because my players are going to have a lot of investment, and if we're doing this thing, yada yada." And people are like, it's not a great one to start out with because it's kind of complicated, but it's not the hardest module they've made by any stretch. I guess, yeah, but I bet you could adjust it up.
I would believe it, if only because my only other experience with their stuff is the stuff
the Crown of the Kobold King.
I can't even remember what the first adventure in that is called. It's something about the.
It's just brutal.
It's so brutal. My character was just limping through the last part of that adventure.
You really were. As if it wasn't bad enough that for the entire first session you were desperate about ammunition.
It's been absolutely terrible. It's they just try to murder you as
yeah, they really do.
As like as mean as they can be, I guess.
It's not enough that I was mauled by a poisonous snake in the night, but my character started to die just like halfway through just because he was sick. And I cured, and so I was dying.
Yeah, it's like the Crown of the Kobold King adventure path or modules or whatever is really cutthroat and ruthless, whereas the Kingmaker one is a lot more sandboxy, and it's also a lot less cutthroat and ruthless. It doesn't try to murder you quite as hard.
So it's like they know your characters are in it
far. I'm sort
for
of
the
looking forward
long
to
haul.
when we get into some like into some random encounters. Like those mites were like I love that sort of stuff. It wasn't like a long dungeon. We fought a bunch of mites, by the way, and it was awesome because they were living under a big, sweet looking tree.
Mites are awesome.
And mites are awesome. And like that whole thing, that little mini dungeon scenario was like really entertaining. I enjoyed it greatly. You know, it was just very I don't know, very fun.
That's one thing about Kingmaker is it's not your average dungeon crawl.
Definitely.
It's this sort of open game where you're supposed to have goals and trying to accomplish things, and you're trying to go somewhere, you're trying to build something in the end, and it's more about what you do with the game. That's what it seems like, than it is about laughing at all of the crazy, horrible things that are happening to the party, which honestly seems like a really big thing in role-playing that we just don't really do a lot of.
That's true. And that happened a lot in the Crown of the Kobold King, and we got let off pretty easily from what it sounds like. You know, like Kingmaker has this whole exploration aspect that I'm super jazzed to get into, especially because I've been playing so much Skyrim. For those of you out there who are playing Skyrim, aka everybody, like Skyrim is all about exploring. You know, you spend so much time just running from place to place and getting sidetracked by, I don't know, everything that moves or looks like it has an entrance to a place where you can murder a whole bunch of stuff. And like Skyrim is filled with these weird experiences, and Kingmaker, you know, like we explored one hex and we camped out in another hex, and both of those times we came across fairly entertaining, awesome experiences, basically at random. And like I cannot wait to get knee deep in that stuff because that stuff is super fun. I don't know. I haven't come across another module that was quite the same in that regard, and I don't know. It's exciting. It's different.
Yeah, I guess I'm really interested. I don't think that this is going to be spoiling anything because the Kingmaker Player's Guide basically spells this out. But there's some, you know, there's an aspect of the module or the adventure path that is meant to be like raising up and ruling a territory.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested in seeing how the rules for that actually play out. They're pretty detailed, but they're not, I don't think, super, I don't want to say super balanced, but they're not airtight. And so I think there's a possibility that they will either be way too easy for you all to exploit to gain maximum success, or maybe something will just throw a monkey wrench in your plans and you'll just be like playing catch up the entire time. And either way it goes, I'm still pretty psyched about it. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah,
okay, go on.
Well, I don't really see our party as a power game the system as far as the building things is concerned. Like, I would guess that like we're all really geared towards good aligned. Like, we're probably just going to try and make a usable place.
I mean, we've thought about it out of game.
I haven't looked at any of that stuff at all. For mostly laziness reasons, even though Ed posted, you know, some of the kingdom building stuff. I haven't really delved into it as much as Rory and Joe have. But my focus is still on getting magic weapons for me.
Ow.
As a player, sorry, as my character wants everyone to be happy as long as they're all wielding magical swords.
I'm not really worried about you guys, like, doing the... Like, you know that you can build all graveyards in a town, and it technically, by the book, works.
Yeah, but you also need people to fill those graveyards.
But somebody in
that can be arranged.
Somebody in that town needs to be alive. And
you could, I guess, yeah. I mean, if you just hire some necromancers, you basically got it covered.
Listen, if you're not neutral evil, you have to have some living inhabitants to your town.
Okay, fair enough.
So what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that I'm less concerned about it going too well for you than it going too badly. I mean, I think the worst case scenario is basically there's like a number of like rolls you have to make for your kingdom's upkeep. And I do believe that it will not take too much doing for you guys to make those rolls almost automatically.
Good.
And then And then my biggest concern is just like how much money can you possibly earn by having a rad kingdom. And I hope it's not too much money for the entire game to work.
I don't know. I kind of hope it's too much money.
How about we just buy the other places?
Well,
it's to just buy Brevoy.
Well, it's just like
we'll offer you a few million. You just become part of our kingdom.
You know, you can go on an adventure and you can go to a dungeon and you can plunder a horde. I was saying plunder and I was thinking treasure, so plunder treasure. You can plunder some treasure.
Dragon.
Okay.
He'll give you treasure.
But what I'm saying is, if you're the king of the country, you can also just force everyone to give you their treasure. That is a possibility. And so,
I'm
it's
really interested to see how adventuring works when you're the king of a country.
Also, I think Rory wants to be the ruler, and I'm pretty sure he's lawful good, so I don't think we have too much to worry about.
I want to be the advisor.
Except that when he goes into a frenzy, he speaks in tongues and
if Rory gets into a stressful situation in the courtroom, no one will be able to understand him, and then we'll need, I don't know, I guess.
Babu.
I was actually thinking something like Cone of Cold. So you just deal with the, what do you call them? Witnesses.
We have to go to the plains to get a translator.
Well, one of us can just learn Aklo.
Or we could have fun.
No, I will not learn Aklo.
My character would learn Aklo. Dude, you're a bard. You're supposed to learn languages and shit, aren't you?
Not Aklo. That is a stupid language.
He had to pick a stupid language and not a cool language like.
Actually, I'm pretty sure the book
or
specifically
Sylvan.
said you have to pick a stupid language when you.
Must pick a stupid language.
Oh, no, it says it right there. Yeah.
We suggest Terran or Aklo.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see how those mechanics work, and like you said, I am also interested in seeing how adventuring works when you're the rulers, but I suppose it probably works okay. I mean, otherwise, the adventure path would tell me something about it, right? And I've read a bunch of it, so I'm pretty sure that I should be well informed. No, I'm just this is all going to be pretty awesome. I'm hoping that we'll be consistently able to play. Is all I'm saying.
It is a pretty new experience for us, like playing in a module that we intend to play for the long term, and that we're not just using as a one shot, which Rory has done on a number of occasions, and to great effect. The one shots he's run with modules in general have been very fun, but this one, we basically decided at the very beginning that we're gonna try to do this for the long haul. We're going for it, and it's got a pretty strong pedigree. People seem to really love the Kingmaker adventure path, and I don't know. So far, it's been a blast. I enjoy it. We stream it, so if you ever want to watch it and get a heads up or completely spoil the story and etc. for yourself, you can watch us do it.
Yeah. I would recommend it. It has so far been fun and not too restrictive and just pretty cool.
Yeah. I like the not restrictive. But there's a lot of, actually, one thing I did want to mention that, two things I guess, but they're sort of unrelated. Related to this is the Kingmaker comes pre-packaged with a whole bunch of campaign traits, which seem like a really minor thing, but actually they're a really cool way of tying your characters in to the plot, into the history. Ed offered us 2 traits from different categories, which is reasonable. I think all of us ended up taking a campaign trait. If you were running a Kingmaker game, I would say that you should recommend that your players take a campaign trait. They're just so good.
Campaign traits are, I'm pretty sure, the standard ever since the second or third adventure path. I think they probably had plot hooks for characters before then, but I know that was about the time when the traits system was being kind of introduced and then eventually finalized in the Advanced Player's Guide. Mm-hmm. And every adventure path since has had them. And I mean, honestly, I don't think if I was going to run a Pathfinder game with, like, completely unique plot, I would almost certainly try to develop a pretty good list of campaign traits before I started.
Yeah.
Because I think they're a great idea. People seem to like them. They don't mechanically seem all that much better than normal traits for the most part, except that they're more appealing for, story reasons.
Yeah.
I think.
And I think, I took a campaign trait and it literally, like, it just sort of grew organically while I was reading the traits, and I'm like, oh yeah, this would be really cool. I could totally work that in. And it was fun. I liked it. I think that they're a cool idea, and I hadn't really considered using traits in that way until I started playing this.
Yeah, and I think, like, when I'm looking at how successful I think a game is going to be, the first thing I look at is player buy-in. And every single player took a campaign trait, even if they're not very good. They just took it to have their character have a place in the world and to have fun, and that's a really good indicator, I think, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
One thing that makes me feel kind of dumb is that in the Advanced Player's Guide, they talk about campaign traits, and I honestly did not understand at all what effect they were trying to describe these campaign traits having until I read the adventure path that included them. And I was like, oh, that's why these exist. Because they really just seemed like long-winded traits that don't do anything in the Advanced Player's Guide. But now I'm like, all right, now I follow you. Okay, we're going to use these from now on. Because these are awesome.
They're cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is the fact that we did house rule this quite a bit. Well, I don't know about quite a bit, but like we talked about it a little bit ago that we used, we took out Resurrection entirely, except for Breath of Life, but that hardly counts. Did you consider any more house rules, or was it just a relatively brief list that you were like, I just sort of want these, or what?
I guess on the one hand, I do want to do the thing that Jeff has been doing in his last couple of Pathfinder games, where you just take out item creation feats, mainly because it's kind of a little fuzzier now because the adventure path presupposes that there will be certain availability of magic items, and I'm also assuming that, like, as you develop your kingdom, you will have the opportunity to invest in high-end trade goods and magical research if you want to, meaning that
yes.
Meaning that you'll have the opportunity to control some aspect of that. You'll be able to say, like, well, we want to get a bunch of wizards together to start making magical items in case there are some that they make that we want to buy. So you'll have some access, although I'm restricting it somewhat to say, like, that you can't just buy anything under the base value. Because then you're just going to have everybody with whatever +2 stat belt or headband is appropriate for their role in the party.
Yeah.
And then a +4 one when the base value gets high enough, and then a +6 one. Whereas I prefer, since the departure to 4th edition and then the return back to the D20 world in the form of Pathfinder, I just don't really have any sympathy left for the world where you can buy whatever you want.
Yeah.
So basically that house rule is there. Jeff had another house rule based on, like, how many items you could create total, mainly to stop you from just churning out an endless supply of relatively potent items for everybody to use. I mean, that might not be the reason why Jeff has it, but that's what it seems to serve. And I haven't really officially said that yet, but depending on the shape of the game as it moves forward, I might adopt some form of that, but it won't be quite as strict, I don't think. Like, I'm more or less happy with magic users creating items for non-magic users to use. I like that. And so I want to support that by basically saying, like, you can get your credit back on those eventually. And since the game is probably going to span a large amount of time in-game, that would probably be the metric I would use, like to say a certain amount of time has to pass in-game before you can get back to that, workbench and make a new item. But then another house rule that that I was really considering using that I've more or less decided not to was Jeff's merit points house rule, which I believe we talked about on an earlier episode.
Hey, the one about house rules.
Yeah. And I like that house rule a lot, but since I'm not as much in control of the you know, I'm not saying I'm not in control of the game because I am, but instead of just taking out all of the treasures and gear that the adventure describes that you should get, I'm leaving those in and not using merit points.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The merit point system seemed more like it was a in place because there was not a super high magic world that we were in.
You know, a lot of what I've done with house rules isn't because I dislike anything about Pathfinder. A lot of it is because I'm trying to fit a very specific setting and feel. And I would agree with you completely that for pure balance issues alone, like even having the 25 stat points feels really powerful in this.
Right, and I was like, Rory started his Kobold King, I don't want to call it a campaign, but he started the first adventure, which has now moved into the second, and he gave us 20 points, and I was like, well, I gave out 25, and I sort of felt like it was kind of, I don't know, kind of not weak, but I was just kind of, concerned that it was enough. But I guess the core assumption of the game is that there will be a possibility for magical resurrection, and I figure there's no reason not to give the most robust point buy, just so that you guys can make the most ambitious attempt at the campaign as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mainly because when I was making my 20 point buy character, I was like, this is a lot of points. Like, if you're not going for multiple super high stats,
yeah.
Like I had several 14s, which I then used racial stat points to buy up. So I was just like, this character is pretty rock solid. I'm wondering if 25 points is too much, but I really don't think it is, given the fact that your lives are in the balance. So
exactly.
Yeah, I think that works out. I think overall, like when you give us the document about house rules, and rules adjustments in general, I was pretty happy with it. Just in general, it seemed like a good list. I was just wondering mostly if there were any like you had gone over the one that you had considered and then not used. I like that. I think that's
I mean, I was thinking
it was interesting.
I was interested in using merit points, and it was one of those things like I think part of it is that I've been reading a lot of fantasy literature that it seems like the trend nowadays is for those things to go like low fantasy, like low magic, low supernatural influence at all. And I was just sort of thinking like, to get more of that feel, remove more of the magic items and spells and improve the characters. But this game is not really, I mean, it wasn't created by me. It presupposes that there's trolls and owlbears running around everywhere. And, so it's just kind of like, it makes a little more sense to kind of go with the flow of what it assumes about magic items, which is that, a lot of the adversaries you fight are going to be carrying them. A lot of the enemies you fight are going to be magical in nature. And,
it's better to stick with what the system is offering instead of going on. Yeah, I see what you mean.
You don't necessarily need the benefits that the merit points grant you in order to contend with those, given the tools available.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Kingmaker is set up to be played a specific way, and I think we're doing a good job of doing justice to the module, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we're certainly BA.
And I haven't really had a lot of experience with like published campaign settings. I haven't done anything with Forgotten Realms or Greyhawk or anything, but I am starting to get a little bit of a, I don't want to call it an obsession, but I'm getting really into the Pathfinder game world of Galarion. I mean, I'm just reading more and more stuff about it.
And now they're making that MMO.
And it begins.
Allegedly.
You knew it was coming. No,
Yeah.
I just think it's cool. I know what you mean.
I mean, I would definitely be interested in running my own game set in that world, although I'm also starting to get a little obsessed with the published adventures that Paizo produces, so we'll see how far Kingmaker takes us before we make any rash decisions about other things, though. But yeah, it's so far so good. I have to give them a lot of points for how much I'm liking it so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, and we have a couple of other topics, so we might as well meander over to one of those. The first
good verbiage.
Oh yeah, the first topic we were gonna manhandle is
It feels under pressure to
Yeah, I
continue
know.
the good verbiage going.
Under pressure.
we're gonna talk about fun, good gameplays.
Oh,
So-
yes.
We were talking
Only you
about
could do that all the time.
we talk a little bit about like game settings and technology levels, particularly as inspired by the introduction of guns into Pathfinder with the Ultimate Combat book, and also
Yeah.
just where that subject of technology advancements goes from there.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to throw out there is that after Ultimate Combat came out, and I'm running this game where it's trying to be like a very Forgotten Realms inspired setting, and someone's asking me, so what about gun classes from Ultimate Combat? I'm just like, no, question mark, and no one really complained. I
Yeah.
was just throwing it out there I don't want to piss people off, but I don't really I don't think Gunslinger is overpowered or anything. It doesn't really fit the setting, and that's such a lame reason to disallow something.
I don't
But-
think that's. I think.
I don't know.
When something is disallowed because of the game setting, it feels more legit than when you're disallowing it because it's OP.
Yeah, I like when something that doesn't belong in a setting isn't in the setting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... Yeah, I don't know. Lord of the Rings, and
My-
you add in a gun or two.
I just know
Eh.
everyone loves the Gunslinger from the UC, and I didn't want people to be like, "Oh, that sucks."
I have had an opportunity to play one in Rory's Cobalt King game, and I guess my first impression of them was it was less this is overpowered or not overpowered particularly, or this is out of place in the setting or not out of place in the setting. It was just it seemed lame to me that they would make a class that might just be disallowed because it doesn't fit in a setting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that they should have made it a new ranged combat class that was more general than Gunslinger, but it just seems like they're making a class to exploit basically a new equipment chart that they've tacked on, and that new class and that new equipment chart is more than half likely not to exist in any given game.
Well,
I
and
found that
also-
to be lame. I like the class a lot. The mechanics of it excite me, but I can see more reasons not to allow it than to allow it.
Yeah, also one of the things with that is they added the Gunslinger class, but they didn't add too much else to bring any of the fantasy setting more modern besides the guns themselves.
Yeah.
So there's this thing where it's we're adding this new technology, but we're not adding it anywhere else in the rest of the game. So you're stuck in this, I don't know, medieval fantasy setting
Well, I mean, I guess
with
you
something
have.
that's...
They've also introduced some vehicles rules in
Yeah.
Ultimate Combat, and some of those do include steampunk fantasy things like airships and
Yeah.
other things that
See-
have no reason to be rationally possible
Yeah, but
in a
to me,
fantasy setting.
it didn't really push it up another level.
See, to
I
me,
guess
to
it
me,
just
they were
incorporates steampunk, but that's... I don't know.
Okay, talking about technology levels, if you look at the game that we've been playing, I get the feeling that this is a very standard fantasy world, and the fact that guns might exist does seem strange. I don't get the idea that there's a industry revolution going on in any cities or anything like that, and stuff like that. So it seems weird that there's guns. But then again, I'm not a history person. Like, I don't really know when any of that stuff happened.
Yeah.
I mean,
See,
Me
I think
neither.
the thing of it is like when I look at the stuff in there, I don't feel like they were just making stuff and expecting people to use it or not expecting people to use it. I got the feeling that people requested it, and for their games or whatever, like people had just been house ruling guns in and that sort of thing, and people had decided, oh hey, I want to use that. It's sort of like with psionics, where in a lot of like I knew a lot of people like after reading stuff on the internet, etc., and they'd just be like, no, there aren't psionics in this game, and that was it. And that seems like guns and technology in a fantasy setting to me, where like psionics fit a little bit better in the fantasy setting than that stuff does, but a lot of the time it's just not going to be allowed because it just doesn't work with the world. Like I think they were just including it so people could use it, and not so much including it and expecting people to use it.
One thing I was going to say, just like, I have done I don't want to call it research. I have looked into just the subject of the timeline of gun development and how it, relates to other medieval weapons, and there was a couple of 100 years when you could see, a gun on the same battlefield as a guy in armor with a sword. But realistically, I mean, there are a lot of inconsistencies in the technology presented, even in just like plate armor and shields really didn't coexist for very much in like practical use. But I guess my point is just, you are making a certain kind of logical exception by playing the game with guns. I mean, in addition to the fact that there's magic and dragons every effing where. But my second point was like I haven't really given any serious look at the, like, they have rules for more contemporary firearms in the Ultimate Combat also, which if you read the rules for them, they are O to the P. They are super powerful compared to everything else that you can possibly get. If you allow modern firearms, then the gunslinger becomes the primo best class, easily. But at the same time, like, I find them kind of interesting because, like, one thing that I was thinking about related to them was that at one point in our sorted past, Jeff ran a kind of time travel game, where there was characters from
time travel.
There was
That game
characters
was fucked up.
from the future, and they had guns. And
Yes.
I played a character who had guns briefly, and then I sacrificed him because my previous character from the older time period was made available again, and I wanted to play him more.
Yeah. Good choice.
After that, it basically just became this mysterious family of brothers who were like clerics with rifles, and they were just these super dangerous guys from the future who we were occasionally friends with, and we never really gave any thought to how their guns worked because they just occasionally did, and they were usually kind of a plot point. But I mean, with these rules, it makes sense that they were dangerous badasses because they were using modern rifles, whereas everybody else was using bows and arrows and occasionally fireballs. Which, granted, fireballs are pretty dangerous too. But my point is just that
fireball.
I like having rules for those things. I mean, I don't necessarily want to run every game I play as like a time travel or world jumping game, but I like having rational rules for, let's say there is a country in the world where they've invested more time in developing firearms than in training wizards. And so maybe they have muskets. And you go there and you get shot by a musket. And
Or maybe their wizards made magical guns.
Maybe. Anyway.
One thing when you were talking about how it's all about like what amount of belief or suspension of disbelief you're able to do. Like there are a lot of inconsistencies within Pathfinder as it is, of course, and adding guns sort of illogically, which would be like if you have like a fantasy steampunk sort of artistic setting like that would be adding guns illogically, but it might work if that's the kind of setting you're going for. It's just a different take on fantasy, and I could see that. I'm just happy that when I'm running the fantasy setting that's not that, that people aren't pissed off like that. I like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of options in the game, and I mean, I find it like I realize there are people out there who would be pissed off if their GM was like, nah, it doesn't really fit in the setting, and they'd be like, oh no, I had my heart set on Gunslinger, but like
good impression.
I know I was really gunning for it that time.
That was an awesome impression of some fictional guy we've never met.
Being a total douchewad.
But we're judging him.
Yeah. I was judging him before I even started the sentence.
That guy is a
But
dick.
my point is I don't think that people should be mad if somebody's just like, nah, it doesn't fit in the setting, like I wouldn't be mad if Jeff had told me that wizards weren't allowed in the setting. I'd be like, oh, okay, well, if the setting is interesting, then I could hardly be mad when something it just isn't in it. I mean, as long as the setting works.
The character I'm playing in Jeff's next game is a wizard, so wizards better fucking be allowed.
They're probably not.
I'm so glad they made that bomb wielder. That party is going to be so much more functional now.
Yes.
I did not intend that party to be functional. That's why I made my character.
I mean, I'm honest when I say that it's okay if the party isn't functional, but knowing that there's going to be 9th level spells, potentially, it takes a burden off.
Yeah.
Instead of the wizard who is also half alchemist against all reason or odds.
Well, we don't have to walk everywhere.
Yay, fly. But I mean, the other side of the technology thing is whenever there's a modern or futuristic game and people decide to go backwards, like barbarians, and everyone has laser guns and you have the dude walking around with a sword. Like, that's always seemed like, don't get me wrong, I've done it. I played a giant brute character who carried no weapons and wielded a chainsaw, and we've traveled in space in that game. But
yeah.
But like, it seems like, looking back on it in hindsight, I'm like, why would that character ever do that? Why would he not just? I mean, he's big and strong, yeah, but there are guns. Like, you should just get a bigger gun than most people can carry and pray that he hits something with it.
When the system rewards something mechanically, it's hard to ignore it as a story element. Your character did a lot of damage by hitting things physically.
Yeah.
I mean, there might have been guns out there that could do more damage, but it was just like, your character got along. He wasn't suffering because he was clobbering things instead of shooting them.
It's always just seemed weird, like
very weird.
You have characters in a modern setting. It's even weirder in a regular old World of Darkness when you have people like it's understandable when someone has like a knife or like brass knuckles and they're wrestling and they're good at that, or kung fu or what have you. But when like somebody pulls out a sword, like, what do people in the modern world do when the guy's wearing a big giant trench coat and instead of pulling out a gun like you would expect the vampire to have, no, he pulls out an effing sword. And you're like, are you serious? You brought a sword to a machine gun fight? What are you even doing here? Like, it's so... I mean, it's accepted in the role playing, but when you step back and look at it, you're like, that guy doesn't belong.
In the case, go for it, Ebo.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
There was rocket launchers in that game, and I also had a sword.
Yeah,
right. Same game, yeah. And it was like our whole party was just like sword, chainsaw, and then you had guns, I think.
I had hand grenades. Hand grenade.
But I had normal human guns. I was
but that seemed to work for the setting because we also played other characters in that world that didn't have any sort of modern weapons.
But those guys were like known to be like Power Ranger style super soldiers,
It's more feasible to go backwards than it is to go forwards in time.
And that's another thing about the sort of plot. Like, if you're running like I've run a number of very fantasy adventure sci-fi White Wolf games, and it's cool for swords to be powerful and guns to be powerful, but like, I've also tried to run more gritty, realistic White Wolf games, and I've just hated how powerful melee weapons are in those games because it is the most ridiculous thing. Because in real life, guns are king, and there's no argument about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just Just hate that.
And when we played that mage game, there was nobody who had a melee weapon, and it made me so happy because we were playing in a modern setting, and I could not find one sword among any of the PCs or NPCs, and I was just like, yes, the people who mean business are using guns like they should be. You know, like no one is a barbarian for no reason.
In New York City, some barbarian who carries the sword around.
Exactly. He's got magic powers, and he could be shooting people also, but instead he has magic powers and a gun and a sword. No way, I don't buy it.
Yeah, guns.
I was really happy in that setting.
Guns are top dog in the modern world because everybody who argues with that position has been shot to death by a gun.
Yeah, samurais were great, and then guns came around, and the samurais stopped existing. It's like it's a really clear relationship on that one.
Swords did not defend them from bullets.
Exactly. And like Lee is running a more, I would say, not necessarily fantasy, but definitely alternative setting.
I would use that word too.
And it's very fun, and I'm playing a guy with a sword, and I do not feel like it is weird. Like, it feels like it fits.
Yeah.
I think.
And I sort of I wanted to go out of my way to make, like, guns. Like, guns are still good because they're guns, but they're, they're not easily accessible. So almost everybody in the world has used melee weapons, even down to the, broken glass bottles. And I don't know, I wanted it to be cool for people to go either way, and to encourage people to literally wield whatever is at hand if it comes down to it. And Jeff decided to go with a whole bunch of melee, which made me really happy because his character's a giant monster.
So I guess one thing, I guess this is the kind of point I keep getting back to is, like, I like technology levels being weird in settings when the setting is supposed to be either like alternative or fantasy or something like that. But I honestly don't like seeing it when it doesn't fit the setting, or when it's supposed to be a realistic setting and all of a sudden there's the barbarian in New York with the sword. Like, I honestly don't like that.
Yeah,
I love to keep the setting intact.
Like, I have the other game that I'm running, the one that I have been taking as an extended hiatus on since we moved to California, where they're like, it's a super high magic fantasy setting with like floating islands and the whole works and airships, but there are no guns in the setting because nobody would make guns when everybody has magic powers. Like, people made airships, but they're powered by magic. There's a train, but it's powered by magic. There's no reason for anyone to ever have made guns because they could shoot fireballs instead.
That is actually a point of contention in this game, because I'm like, I love train fights just as much. We've had a whole session about this. I'm like, how do I get trains into this game when I don't think guns fit? So trains really can't fit. But I'm still working, and I'm thinking about that one.
You could do like a horse-drawn carriages fight.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have the same...
Not the same.
It doesn't have the same, like, terrifying lethality of falling off the train.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Like, you fall off the train and you're wearing plate mail, I don't care. Your guts are all mushed up.
I might give it up. I might just not have the potential of a train fight. As
that's a hard...
as that sounds.
I know...
a real, like... you're giving up something major.
I find it sad too, but really, you gotta look at the silver lining in that it's gonna force you to come up with a new way to excite us with physical violence.
Yeah.
That's true. A non-train fight.
Maybe a chariot fight. Maybe some sort of an airship altercation.
Or a dragon fight.
Oh yeah, what if we're on the backs of giant
dragons?
Not like regular sized dragons. I'm talking like dragons with like dudes standing on the backs, like 10 dragons.
Or a world turtle.
A giant
Maybe we
world
could
turtle.
Go into
Zaratan race.
That's what it is. We're doing a Zaratan race. Look forward to it, people. We're going to do a whole podcast about this thing when it happens. Forgotten Realms Zaratan race. Be ready.
Yeah. No. Okay, there's the enemy Zaratan, and you are all riding dragon turtles trying to assault it. That's what it's going to be.
I was just going to say, the two Zaratans that you're racing turn out to mate, and you have to...
We didn't even know.
Wait for 2 years while they finish their coupling, and then... Oh, then the race continues! Yeah, I remember the ecology of Zaratan.
I am preparing for this game. I'm going to blog regularly about how excited I am for the Zaratan race.
This sexy Zaratan race game. This is going to be awesome.
It is. going to be awesome.
It's going to be something. Something that probably won't happen. But yeah, I mean,
Did we not hit on?
I agree with Jeff. The as long as the world is, takes into account the weird technology, I'm super cool with it. But if the technology is out of place, I'm immediately uncool with it. And I would rather it not be there, especially if it's because someone was bitchy and was like, "No, I want to play a gunslinger," and then the person just caved.
I mean,
That's
a pretty timely example too. I mean, that's a new thing, and so I wanted to allow it in my game just because I was ready for people to be excited to play it, and I didn't want people to. I didn't see any reason in my game to disallow it just because. You can give it's the emerging guns period that they describe in the book. They're not readily available, but the gunslingers can get them and make their own ammo and stuff, and so everybody's fine. But at the same time, I'm okay that nobody decided to bite on that, and I would also be fine if nobody talked about it ever again. I'm not saying that you have to ignore it forever, or if maybe one of your characters dies, that option is off the table. It's just one of those things like, if it never comes up organically on my end, and you guys never bring it up, then you can just assume that nobody with a musket has ever wandered within 100 miles of you.
I don't know, man. My next character, when this character dies, which I'm assuming is an inevitability, I can't even imagine making it 18 levels without dying. But anyway, when this character dies, my next character is going to invent the rocket launcher.
Oh, sigh.
Yeah, gun paladin.
Yeah.
That class does look awesome, though. That alternate class.
That is true.
The gun
That looks so fun. Did you read it?
No, I did
yes,
not.
I did.
Oh my god.
I actually played one of those in a joke game a long time ago. Steve McPaladin was his name. And he was a paladin who shot a gun at people.
Very honorable.
That was a great name.
Bringing it back.
Steve McPaladin, man. It's been a while since I heard that name. I was not in that game, unfortunately, and I feel like I missed out on one of the greatest things that's ever happened.
No, but it was fun to talk about.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good enough for me, I guess.
It wasn't great while it was happening, apparently.
I don't remember much about it except that I was a celestial paladin named Steve McPaladin, and Rory was a werewolf who wore a tiny top hat.
We also recorded a bunch of embarrassing clips about Ed while we were playing that game, and I think we might at some point be able to find those and play them on the podcast. They might still exist somewhere.
I think they do.
Rory might have them, or Sean might have them, I don't know.
Ooh, Sean probably does.
I might have them.
I know I don't have them. Cause
I don't have them anymore, I know that.
I wiped the computers on several occasions.
I have my hard drive from my old laptop.
During the early days of the first age of internet free file sharing, but
this was like 12, 13 years ago.
Those were disseminated onto the internet at large at some point. I'm not sure if they if they still exist in any form though.
I put them. I'm gonna bring it back for you guys. I put them on my Napster, and other people downloaded them.
I don't even know why.
No, I have no idea. How would they even come across that crap?
The internet was chaos, man. Now that was the golden age.
Nothing made sense.
No, seriously, BitTorrent is way better.
Way better.
Yeah, internet thievery is fun.
Bit what?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. Speaking of internet chaos, I don't think we should ever have the internet in any of our games. I'm including modern games because when I can look something up on Wikipedia in the game, it's like using magic.
Yeah, I guess
I've realized lately I've been looking up things on Wikipedia, and I can find out everything I ever wanted to know about any subject, and I can do that with magic in mage games, and I'm like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't have the internet in our games anymore. It's like cheating.
Cell phones, OP.
Yeah, seriously.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm comfortable running a game set later than 1990 anymore, just because I'm like, I can't control these people. They all have cell phones and the internet, and they're always calling each other. Nobody is carrying 50 cents in their pocket just in case they have to make a phone call.
Anyway, I'm just gonna try to pretend that there isn't delicious smelling food in this room right now,
It's not happening. It's
and
in the air.
instead start, doing
All right,
whatever we do when we're wrapping things up.
Something technology levels. Ha 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 ha.
Suggesting to you all that you use the aforementioned evil internet and go to our website where you probably found this podcast. Browse the archives we have for Kingmaker. We have archives for other games too, but the Kingmaker ones are more pertinent because we were just podcasting about them. And they're cool, and we've been playing that on Mondays, and that's probably going to be a trend that continues. And we post about it on the front page, yada yada. You can follow us on Twitter.
It's also video chat, so you can see all of our stupid faces.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our awesome faces.
We have some stupid faces going on.
Yeah.
We're on the Twitters. You can find it on our website somewhere. We have forums that you can post on if you want to, make fun of us at length.
You can request Joe to have a different wild hairstyle every night.
Yeah, he will do it. He will put his hair in pigtails for you.
He probably would.
He would put his hair in pigtails if I so much as mentioned pigtails to him. I'm surprised I haven't seen that yet, to be honest.
So yeah, give us a comment. Feel free and post. Send us an email.
Yeah, we'd love to hear anything you want us to talk about, and we will guarantee it.
Podcast at houserule.com.
Yeah.
That's our thing.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, we will catch you next time. See ya.
Bye.
Later.
No!